The Enemy of My Enemy by SSJ Al-Hazred. Victory Arena at Heck Edmondson Pavilion, Washington. Though the dressing room is well lit, it's clearly seen better days. Venues such as this one, formerly named after a bank before the war, focus more of their resources on staying open and keeping a schedule of events than perfect tidiness and maintenance. Their costumes from a regular monthly performance in the cubbyholes, unrelated to tonight's event. As I enter, John Cena is in the middle of his warm-up exercises. Like the room, he seemed better in younger days, but the scars on his face and arm are almost invisible next to his exuberance. He has no trouble holding a conversation while going through his stretches. You know, even before the war, lots of people, even people who weren't fans, anyone who just happened to catch him on TV, lots of people thought old Vince was insane. He totally was, too. That man would have brilliant ideas one minute and force total crap through the writing team the next because he laughed real easy at dirty jokes. Damned if a lot of us would have survived the panic otherwise, though. He couldn't write worth a damn, but he could spot bullshit and reality a mile away. He panicked before the panic was in full swing, sent us all home, canceled all the events, paid us the rest of our salaries for the year, and told us to batten down the hatches. Those were his exact words, batten down. He wanted us to be ready when it was all over, safe, uninfected, and healthy enough to go right back to work. I guess that was the one bit of bullshit he never caught on to, though. That whole idea it was going to blow over quickly. Not that any of us thought differently. Not that it was early enough to make a huge difference. He thought he had time to stop in Connecticut before Greenwich was overrun, and he was wrong. Most of us were lucky. We were doing shows in California right before Yonkers. Everyone not in New York was still pretending life was relatively normal before that, you know? John pauses and sits down, looking awkward on the floor with his arms over his legs. I was trying to get home before Yonkers was even over, man. Your family owned a farm in Massachusetts? He nods. By the time I got it through my head that this shit wasn't something anyone could ignore, it was going to head west whether we liked it or not, it was too late. No one could go east, not just to the coast, but east. You would have had a hard time getting to Arizona from California. Well, it wasn't all bad. Some of my family... At the time, I had no idea, though. I assumed the worst. I thought about my dad once a day. I wonder if he stayed. Tried to hold down the farm like a fort until the numbers just piled on like some crazy Nod 1 rush. I imagine what it would have been like if I'd gone home sooner. If I'd tried to talk him out of it, if I'd stayed to fight it out to the bitter end. Once everyone was panicking, no one was helping. There was no way to get word out or get word from anywhere even remotely close to New York. I spent a month trying to find my girlfriend, and I just found out she'd headed east after Zach was on the move, probably looking for her own family. Well, I never saw her again. For a while, I refused to believe I never would, though. Lots of isolated pockets survived, right? It wasn't that much of a fantasy. Anyway, when we were pretty good and settled behind the Rockies, I was surprised to find myself classified as something other than F6. I didn't really think a pro wrestler had useful skills for taking on Zach or the needs of everyone. Turned out personal trainers were in slight demand, though. Wasn't an A1 by any means. Damn, I can't remember the number, but whatever. I didn't get away from doing work, but most of that work was working closely with people. Large groups of them, though. We never gave lectures. Any of us who knew anything about nutrition, we made rounds through as many refugee camps as we could before dropping. Later, as many neighborhoods as we could when they started existing again. We'd take inventory of supplies, get everyone to understand exactly how much nutrition they had available, how they should ration it, how they should exercise to use it best without burning so many calories it would just be wasting food. And that was a crapshoot, let me tell you. Even people who weren't totally out of shape, the kind that had never worked out a day in their lives, this idea that they should devote a half hour of free time every other day to exhausting themselves after work already exhausted them. You know, the fat couch potatoes were usually more open to it. Would you believe that? I never understood that. I thought maybe they wanted to slim down so they could outrun Zach easier, or hell, I don't know. Not like they were all cooperative like some magical nationwide aerobics class anyhow. John pulls some bottled water from a blue rucksack near him on the floor. I accept when he retrieves a second bottle and offers it to me. Like many brand name water bottles these days, the seal is long broken and it's refilled from a sink. So that went on for a while, right? Then this one winter, I'm working out. I'd adapted to not having a gym real quick. That lack of nutrition I was talking about, that meant I was a skinny little bastard for a while, but keeping something of what I had was how I spent my downtime. I know everyone just knows every single one of us juiced up. The ones who did and got caught sure didn't help, but hey, truth of the matter is, plenty of us look like we were on roids just because we worked out that much. Wasn't much else to do while on the road. Anyway, I remember this like yesterday. I was doing chin-ups on a tree in the courtyard of the apartments I was assigned to live at. My roommate was this skinny little computer geek who spent the day making sure the military's network stayed networked and all that stuff. I'd badgered him for a while to be my workout buddy, mostly out of loneliness, really. I still didn't know any of my family was alive. I'd had no regular contact with human beings for a while. I had to deal with too many to remember any of them. Trying to be social with my roomie was how I kept from thinking about everyone I lost. How I kept from losing it, I think. So we're out on this tree doing chin-ups, and he'd been at it for like 2 months now. He wasn't winded after 5 seconds like he was when he started. This was the last thing we'd do, and it was snowing out, but it was early in the season, so it hadn't gotten bitter yet. We're holding onto this branch and doing the routine, wearing old scavenged hoodies, winter boots, jeans, and he says, "John, man, I'm gonna drop." So I tell him to go ahead inside, and I'll be there soon. So he lets go and drops, and I hear him shout and fall, and I figure he just stuck the landing. He was a geek. He could fall after dropping 6 inches, you know? So I dropped down to make sure he didn't break anything. And the very first thing I realized was that we weren't alone. There was someone else right there in front of our faces. So the first thing I think, before I even take in the scene, before I look for detail, this is a fucking zombie sneaking up on us. My buddy yelled and fell over because some living dead asshole shambled in right under our noses, and now we had a problem. Had you ever seen a zombie before? Oh, damn right I did. Not during the panic. I was already west, and I was never near the local outbreaks when they first started, but I'd put 2 down by then. One was when I'd caught watch duty, and that was usually the work we did when we were pulled from our educational tours. Found one in an abandoned home. Another was, well, some random Zach had gotten into the city, wandered around a bit after the last winter. When it thawed, it took someone by surprise in the neighborhood I was teaching in. I'll never, ever forget that guy trying to pry this undead bastard off of him. The rest of us, me included, I'm ashamed to say, just circled around like we were watching some ordinary fight. We were too afraid to do anything, too afraid of being bitten. Imagine that. I had no problem scouting abandoned houses, but this just set off all that wiring that stops people from acting when there's a crowd. Anyway, he gets bitten before he can pull his gun and cap the Zach. He totally freaks out and empties a whole mag into its head after that. He looks around. I felt like he was making eye contact with each of us, each and every one. Reloads the gun, puts it to his head. This guy just starts crying. He just couldn't do it. He walked straight over to me. I don't know why. We didn't have on uniforms or anything like that. He couldn't have known I was someone who was maybe prepared for this sort of thing, that I was supposed to be in case it ever happened on watch. He just hands me the gun, and he's still crying, and I took it. Did it for him. Sorry, I'm getting way off track here. Please, say whatever you feel is appropriate. Right, well, back to thinking Zach was going to lunge for me any second. Was it actually a zombie? Nope. Of all the people left in the world, it was Taker.